This one is going to be a lot of fun. I love it when I can help people have fun with changing things about themselves, because a lot of people think that whenever they go to somebody for help, whether it's a therapist or a hypnotist or a coach or even a trainer or a guru of sorts, and by the way, I do not consider myself to be a guru, so please don't put that on me. But whenever somebody goes for help, a lot of people are a little afraid because they think it's going to be really emotional, really difficult. Some people think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. I take pride in helping my clients have a lot of fun with the changes that they want to make. So in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can actually change your response from a different person. And what I mean by that is, one of my clients came in recently, and many of my clients report this, but this one particular person stands out in my mind. And this one person said, you know, Dan, I have this coworker that really stresses me out. And it just seems like they belittle me, they put me down, and other people in our organization. And every time I'm in a meeting with them, I get this shiver, the like chills go throughout my body, and I just can't stand it. And as a consequence of that, I'm not really speaking up all that much, and I get nervous and apprehensive, and it went on and on from there. Another client said, you know, I have my ex, and I have to see my ex every time I drop my kids off. And every time I see my ex, I feel it just brings back a lot of that crap, and I feel like I just get really stressed out. I feel this pit in my stomach, and I don't like it, and I want to feel better about them as if I'm not even affected by them. So here's a strategy that I actually use with a lot of my clients that you can use as well if there's a person stressing you out or causing you to feel anxious. Now, before we get too into it, if you haven't already, make sure you rate and subscribe. Make sure you go on my podcast if you're not listening to this, if you're watching the video, or make sure you go on my YouTube channel if you're not watching this, if you're listening to this. Also, check me out on TikTok, on Instagram. I'm on TikTok as Anxiety Relief Guy. The time I'm filming this or recording this, I now have over 200,000 followers on TikTok, which is awesome. So you can go over Anxiety Relief Guy on TikTok. You can also follow me at Dan Candell on Instagram. I always love to have more followers because my mission is to help more people. So you can help me help more people by going over and following and also sharing my content. Maybe you have a friend or a family member who is particularly stressed out by another person, and maybe you choose to share this with them because it's really going to help them out. And again, this is a fun strategy. In no way are you wishing any ill will or harm on another person whatsoever. This is a really fun strategy that you can use in order to change your response. So I am very aware as well that a typical life advice thing to tell your friends, if your friends or your family members say, oh, this person makes me feel like this, it's knee-jerk reaction to say, listen, they can't make you feel anyway. You choose to feel that way. However, sometimes people become anchored to feelings. And when you start feeling really bad about a person, or when that person has done things to you or behaved in a way that makes you feel a certain way, or you respond in a certain way, that person will become anchored to some of those negative feelings and negative behavior responses. So here's a really fun and effective way to change it. First and foremost, we feel a certain way based on the thoughts and the pictures that we are making in our mind. So if you've conditioned yourself to, even inadvertently, to feel a negative feeling when you're around someone, or even when you think of someone, and you've probably said this before, maybe even heard it before. Someone may have told you, oh my gosh, I get a pit in my stomach whenever I think about my ex, or I feel like I got punched in the stomach every time I think about this person, or whenever I see that person, I just want to punch a goat in the throat. Okay, I know that's kind of weird. I'm not advocating for farm animal violence here, so don't think I'm doing that. But so here's what you do about it instead. All you have to do is change the image that you are making of that person. And what it does, it recodes the way you think about them in your mind. So by changing the image, you're changing the way your mind perceives them, and then you're changing the way you feel about them. Isn't that pretty interesting? So here's some ways or some things that you can change. Think about that person and think about how they might cause you to feel a certain way or some feelings that you may have connected to them. And now, start to change the way you think of that person. So let's start off by changing some physical things, okay? Imagine that person for a moment as you're kind of hearing them, seeing them, or thinking about them in a way that stresses you out or causes you to feel a little anxious or apprehensive. And now, change that image. So maybe you imagine that person with a big purple or pink or orange clown hair or clown wig. Or maybe you think of that person with this giant birthday hat and this giant witch's nose with a wart on the side of the nose. Or maybe you imagine that person with only like 2 teeth in their mouth. So change some things physically about that image. Maybe you imagine like smell fumes are coming off of them, almost like they smell absolutely repulsive and disgusting. Maybe, because I know some people are going to listen to this or watch this and they're going to say, but Dan, you told me to put clown hair on them and a clown nose, but clowns freak me out. Clowns make me feel anxious. Okay, so then don't use clowns. Use something else. Another image I use with a lot of my clients are footy pajamas. Imagine that person in footy pajamas and put weird things on those footy pajamas. Put weird things on their face. Like I said, imagine that person with like a giant wart and almost no teeth and boogers coming out of their nose. Like, make it ridiculous. And as you now change the picture, it's going to start to change the way your mind perceives them. And it's going to add some ridiculousness to it. Let's go with something else. Think about their voice. And think about specifically how you hear their voice or how their voice sounds. Now let's change their voice. If it helps you close your eyes, you can close your eyes while you do this. But as you change their voice, imagine changing the pitch first. So maybe you turn it up really high so it sounds like they're on helium or it sounds like they're Minnie or Mickey Mouse. And maybe you change the speed at which they talk. And think about hearing some things that they might say to you that would have normally bothered you. Maybe, you're an awful person. I can't believe how much of an awful person you are. And that changes the way your mind codes it. You see, when you hear it differently, the message often changes. Imagine turning the pitch down and putting it in slow motion. You are an awful person. Almost like in the movie Finding Nemo when Dory is speaking whale, if you've ever seen that movie, and she's like, anyway, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. Imagine their voice sounding like that. And when you do, it actually changes the way you perceive what they're saying. Now, imagine this over a couple of times. So again, all you have to do is change the image, change the sound, and maybe you even change the location. So maybe you imagine this person now really, really small, like all the way over there. Now, the way we code things generally is the more important things are, the closer they seem in proximity. The less important things are, usually, the further away they are in proximity. And things that are further away, things that are smaller, don't really bother us as much. Here's an example of this. You know the movie It? It's a really creepy movie. I don't like scary, creepy movies. And if I'm going to watch a scary, creepy movie, I usually watch these movies on a plane. The reason why is because the screen is really, really small and because there's a lot of people around me. And it makes me feel more comfortable because the screen is smaller. So the reason why we feel so many emotions when we go into a movie theater is because that screen is so big and that's all we're seeing. But when you shrink it down, there's other things around. Often what happens is it changes the way we perceive that image. Another thing that I usually do when I'm watching a scary movie is I turn the volume way, way down because it's usually the soundtrack of the movie that makes it scary. You think about the soundtrack of this movie, and the soundtrack goes dun 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 dun. That right there, what is that? Jaws, right? And every time you hear that sound, you think of the movie Jaws. There are many movies that play on emotions and feelings based on the soundtracks that they use. So that shows us when we change the soundtrack in our mind of situations or memories or even people, it changes the way we perceive them. When we change size, color, location, attributes about a person in our mind, it changes the way we perceive them. So the next time you think about a person bothering you, or the next time you think about, oh my gosh, this person really stresses me out. Again, think about putting them in ridiculous clothing and just this image of them looking absolutely ridiculous. And then you can change the soundtrack. So with that said, my friends, feel free to follow me for more. I absolutely love sharing these tips, tools, and techniques with you. Feel free to go to my website, dancandell.com, if you'd like to join one of my programs. And as always, be well, do good, and be true to who you are. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to get more mindset tips, tricks, and techniques that you can use in your everyday life. And if you haven't already, hit the thumbs up button and drop a comment in the comment section below.